Now from the Weather Tracker TV Storm Studios, this is your weather today. Here's Chief Meteorologist William Cole.
All right, well, happy Tuesday, everybody. Here we go now, just pushing right on through our work week. And I tell you, I've got a real whipsaw forecast on the way. Today, the temperatures will be trending down. We've got a cold front. It's making a little more in the way of forward progress than the data initially advertised. So some of us are going to be a little bit cooler today. We're going to talk about that. And then really, as we get into tomorrow, Wednesday, through the rest of your work week, temperatures come roaring back in the other direction. And I may even be talking about some rain, some storms on down the road. Again, obviously, details on all of that over the next few minutes, but this is what I'm talking about. Look at your Tuesday here. Not that this is overly chilly, but again, compared to yesterday where we tied a record high for yesterday's calendar date, temperatures a little more in check today. Most of us in the Metroplex will be in the 60s. Here is the frontal boundary. You can see the blue line right there, but here's the story, right? Here's what happened. The data really, as we've gone over the last several days, most of the good data stalled the boundary right up along the Red River, did not really give it much forward progress into North Texas. Typically this time of year, the data underperforms the forward progress of a frontal boundary. So really this should be no surprise, right? So what's happened now is the boundary's made a little more in the way of forward progress into North Texas. And the way it looks, it's either going to stall out directly across the Metroplex or just on the southern sides of the Metroplex. The only reason that matters is because for some folks, we're talking about temperatures in the 50s, the 60s, maybe even some 70s, again, across the area, right? So wide-ranging temperatures depending on where that boundary is relative to your location. So you can see across the country, even across the region, as far as precipitation goes today, that is all relatively quiet. Again, really our big story just remains the boundary. But again, you can see on the northern sides of it, not that we necessarily have Arctic air, but there is some real deal cold air. Now, the good news is, even though the frontal boundary is kind of wobbling into North Texas, yeah, it'll bring some cooler temperatures today, but the real cold air, right, the push of that cold Canadian air is going to stay well to our north. And simply put, as we get into tomorrow, Wednesday, like I mentioned, through the rest of the work week, the frontal boundary then lifts back to the north, and we kind of go on repeat of we're talking about temperatures in the 80s for the next several days. So today's kind of the only more interesting day, if you will, of the forecast, but you can see the overall pattern. And one of the reasons why, even though we've got some chillier air moving into the nation, the real deal Arctic air still remains bottled up to the north. It's a zonal pattern that we've been talking about with the jet stream flow. This time of year, you really have to look for a big dip in order to get some real cold stuff down, similar to what we had a couple weeks ago. But going forward in time, that pattern persists, right? It's this west to east zonal pattern. There will be a storm trough by this upcoming weekend. It is going to drop another front down into the area, but it's going to be another front that gives us a cool down, but again, not necessarily a blast of colder air. That same frontal boundary could also offer an opportunity of some rain, some storms, even into the first part of early next week, maybe an opportunity of rain as well. Again, you can see just future rainfall projections. Again, this is looking a ways on down the road, but could there be opportunities of rain? And again, accumulating rain at that, the answer is yes. Obviously, this is just kind of a broad brush right now. We'll continue to refine that forecast as we get closer in time. Otherwise, today, again, it's going to be cloudy near the boundary. There could be some persistent fog even into the afternoon, kind of a narrow corridor of some fog. But then as we finally get into tonight, into tomorrow, we begin to clear the skies. And then simply put, we're basically back onto that persistent forecast Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, again, with temperatures jumping back into the 80s. But as we look a little bit deeper into February, are we done with the cold weather? Yeah, you wouldn't think so, right? I mean, we're just early in February. Typically February, one of our more active months in North Texas for wintry weather. And the Climate Prediction Center thinks those temperatures will be trending down the deeper we get into February. So you see some 50s, 60s, 70s. There are those wide-ranging temperatures I was talking about this afternoon. If you're making evening plans, temperatures basically through the 60s, a cool evening but doable. And then again, you can see just a little bit chillier off to the northwest. These are your overnight lows. Then as we get into tomorrow, take a look at this. Temperatures come roaring back, 70s, 80s back on the board. And simply put, that is going to be your forecast you can see over the next several days. But we will be watching again towards the end of the weekend. Looks like we'll have a front back in the area. Temperatures trending down. Next opportunity of rain and storms showing up there as well. More coming up.